One thing you'll have to remember whenever you airbrush is keep these clean, because you get grease on your fingertips, you can get grease on the artboard, and if you're using water-based paint, it's going to show up that fingerprint and you're screwed. Always have a good eraser as well, because you need to keep your artboard clean. Make sure it's plastic. You'll thank yourself for it. Speaking of clean artboard, always make sure you've got some lighter fuel handy. Keep wiping your artboard over with it before you start work. When you got your pencil lines down, it strips grease, and that's very important. Before I actually get down to telling you about the painting itself, I'd like to introduce you to a few tools of the trade. This is my original airbrush. It's a DeVilbiss Super 63E, an aerograph. It's a fabulous piece of kit. I had it rebuilt some years ago because I just couldn't bear to part with it, so I thought I might as well get it restored. But I retired it because something else came out that was really quite exceptional, even more so than this. And that is this, the Aztec, revolutionary in design. I must have bought this, I don't know, 35 years ago. So long ago now, I can't remember, maybe even older than that. But unlike conventional airbrushes where you have a needle running all the way through the body, the needle on this is very short. It's just in this section here, and you screw off these different nibs. You can see, or nozzle I should say, you can see at the front a different colour, so you get different size needles in there and spatter cap, things like that. I produced so many paintings with this as well, absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately it's developed a fault. It's leaking air inside, and it's a sealed unit, so I can't take it apart and fix it. It's a sealed unit because when I bought it there was a lifetime guarantee, and if it ever stopped working they would just replace it. It sounded perfect at the time, but unfortunately the company has now gone. So I've had to replace that and got yet another new kit on the block, which is this. This is an Iwata Eclipse, and the engineering in this is just astonishing. It can produce the finest of lines and the broadest of sprays. It's a bit like going back to the DeVilbiss in some respects, because it's heavy, it's chromed, it's metal, the fixed colour cup on the top. But of all the things I had to get used to on this painting after such a long break, this was possibly the easiest. Fantastic piece of equipment. Don't regret buying it at all. But it's not all just about airbrushing, because you can only go down so small with an airbrush. You can only cut a mask so small, and I'm not working on a particularly huge size image, so other things get brought into play. This is a technical pen, a Rotring isograph. I've used these for years. They are perfect for fine line work where you need it in black, maybe the edge of a piece of trim on a door or something, or lines on a tyre. Fortunately though, they've become less reliable these days. They tend to block up too easy, and I've lost confidence in them, really. Maybe it's the ink I've got, which is really quite old now. It's possibly gone off, I don't know, but I've used these quite a bit. But they do cause problems when using things like ellipse templates. And here's an ellipse template, and as you draw around the inside, the ink spreads underneath and spoils what you're doing. So I found a little dodge for that, and that's these little adhesive glass beads. And if you stick them around the edge of your ellipse, 7 or 8 of them around here, it holds the plastic off the artboard, so you do away with the bleed problem. But that doesn't really fix the rotary problem. These are very important and very useful. They're French curves. It's almost impossible to draw the perfect curve freehand, and you get these in all sorts of different patterns. The curve you want is in there. That's the one I use most of all, covered in paint. Or you can have one of these, which you can bend to suit. These weren't around many years ago when I was airbrushing, and so they're relatively new on the block for me anyway. These are fine line spirit markers, and I use them as replacements for the rotary pen. There's good news and there's bad news with these. The good news is you get fault-free ink delivery every time. The bad news is they're not quite so opaque, certainly not as opaque as using rotary pens. So when you scan a painting in, you can get problems with the scanner being bright enough to actually shine through the ink that you've put on there, which looks okay to the eye, but the scanner can see through it. So a bit of time retouching some of the lines on screen was needed, but they're all very similar. You can get them in different sizes, different colours. This is a Staedtler pigment liner. It's a 0.05, although to be honest, looking at the different sizes that you get different makes in, where you just judge it by how it looks, the sizes don't seem to be a reliable indicator. This one is a Winsor & Newton. This is a 0.5. This one's a cool grey, which is very handy for lining in on alloy or steel wheels. And this one is a Micron 0.1, and this is a very pale grey marker. Think pencil line, but in pigment. Very useful. But all airbrush painting starts with one thing: the good old pencil. This is Derwent. Come in various grades. This is a 6H, which is very hard, and I use it for fine lines on artboard. You can even get these in 9H, which is great fun because if you're bored, you can play darts with them. But perhaps the best unsung hero of my airbrush paintings, at any rate, is this, the humble paintbrush. This is a Winsor & Newton Series 7 Sable Hair. It's the finest paintbrush in the world. This is a size 00, and a tip even as fine as that will cost you £20, which is a lot to pay for such a small paintbrush. But when you use it, you can feel it and you can see the results. Sometimes you're going to need really quite precise lines in colour. And for that I use a ruling pen. You've probably seen these before in compass sets and so forth. The principle is quite simple. You put colour between the 2 points, and this dial on top determines how thick that line is. I started off using one of these initially, just an ordinary steel one, and I wore the points out. This is different. You can see the different colour metal on the tips here. It's tungsten tipped. This is made by a Swiss company called Wild, who went defunct some years ago, but this ruling pen will see me out. Let me introduce you to the surgeon's scalpel. I sort of grew up and through the trade using one of these. Used to use them to cut out, pieces of paper when you're preparing artwork, your bodies of type and so on. They're a probably aren't any designers of a given age who haven't operated on themselves at some point with these. Very sharp, be very careful. Blood is such a bad look on a piece of artwork. But they have two purposes. One is to cut your masking film, and you'll need to learn just the right amount of pressure to cut through your masking film, but not the artboard beneath it. It's an acquired skill, but it's necessary. The other thing they're really useful for is for very white, fine lines. You see, nothing pops on an airbrush painting like the artboard. The artboard is blindingly white. The whitest paint you can use will seem dull by comparison, so if you need very fine marks, like headlamp lenses, the little lines you get in the glass, this is what you do them with. If you try and do it with a rolling pen, it'll look clumsy and lumpy, that'll be out of scale to the headlamp, that'll be too thick. These will do it perfectly. You just got to get that feel of scratching away the paint. It's worth persevering because the fine lines that you get will really pop, and they have a delightful tapered finish. No blunt stops, it'll just fade away. Okay, are you ready? Because this is where the adventure starts.